Welcome to True Wellness with Dr. D, the podcast where we explore what it takes to live with vitality, balance, and purpose. I am Dr. D, and each week I'll bring you powerful tools, inspiring stories, and expert insights to help you thrive in every area of your life. From health and wellness to mindset and navigating life's challenges, this podcast is your guide to creating a life of true well-being. Be sure to check the show notes and grab your free copy of the True Wellness Checklist so you can get started on your journey to true wellness right away. Now, let's get started. Hello, everybody. Good to see you for another episode of True Wellness with Dr. D. I want to bring something to light today that I think is very, very important. And our special guest here, Alyse Shockey, is the queen of this issue that I know. You guys, most people think that diet, nutrition, hormone imbalances, that those are some of the biggest keys to our health. But what if I told you it was something a little bit different? What if one of the important pieces to our health that we've been missing is our own airway? Mm-hmm. And what has been showing up in the science and the research is that the impact of airway is tremendous on our overall health and well-being. And today we are going to dive deep into that rabbit hole because it is really important, and it's time to really bring the awareness right to front and center when it comes to our airway. Alyse Shockey, she has 3 decades or more of professional experience in dentistry and holistic medicine. She has this interest in complementary alternative medicine that's given her years of advanced study, understanding more about airway. She studies something called orofacial myology, which she'll share with us what that means. And she's really on the front line, when it comes to early sleep issues, swallowing, breathing disorders, detecting things. And she's even on the task force for the American Dental Association for children's airway screening. And you guys, I remember, Alyse, I have this memory of you, and I know that you are an avid speaker, and I remember you being at a conference up on stage, and we were talking about dental health, and we were talking about flossing, and you had us all flossing and moving our bodies as if we were flossing. And it's just so powerful because I think what Alyse brings today is not just her knowledge and her wisdom, but at least the way that you break things down for our understanding, I think is going to be really crucial to our conversation today and understanding this issue called airway. So thanks for being here.
Oh, you're welcome. It's always a delight to join forces with you and what you're doing in your world, and to merge medicine and dentistry together. Yes. And which is an oxymoron in some worlds, but you and I know better. So that's a good heading in the right direction.
Yeah, absolutely. This is a topic, Alyse, that I think gets not enough attention. We've had some experts on our podcast, Dr. Lane Martin. We've had Dr. Leonard Fazio, who have talked about these issues, but I know this is heart and soul, a passion of yours, because you're at the front lines of really, uncovering how airway is having an impact on people and their health, and really being at the forefront of studying that. So how did you even, well, let's start with this. What is airway?
Well, that's a good question. After being in dentistry as a dental hygienist for 42 years, and I had not really heard much about airway issues like I have now. I'd say the last 5, 6, 7 years, it's become more of a topic that more dentists are taking a look at. One of the reasons is because we have so many adults that are snoring, grinding their teeth, not feeling rested, and it's impacting their world. And there's so many Band-Aids that are put on, CPAPs, night guards, things like that, that are just, addressing the immediate issue, but not getting to the underlying root cause. And so when we talk about airway, it's the volume of space going down the back of your throat.
Okay.
And one of the easiest things to do, believe it or not, is just get in front of a mirror, open your mouth, just kind of normally,
Wide open. Yeah.
wide open. And how much of the back of your throat can you actually see when your tongue is just at rest? And
Okay.
you can see down in my airway. If your tongue is blocking it, and I'll see if I can do it, fake it.
Yeah.
Like
So everyone who's listening, you can go ahead
you
and
got to block it with the back of your tongue, then you're reducing the amount of air that can get down to your throat normally.
yeah.
So our noses were meant for breathing and our mouths were meant for eating. And when you get those two mixed up, it's a problem. So ideally, you should be breathing through your nose all the time. Your tongue should rest comfortably up in the roof of your mouth, not down low behind your lower front teeth.
Yeah.
And you're getting good volume of air down into your throat. Now, what happens when you have it blocked because the tongue's in the wrong position, and the tongue is such a huge muscle that it forms the face, the teeth,
Mm-hmm.
and so it can do a lot of damage. But if we use it in the right way, it can do a lot of good. So it's just figuring out at what point in life to intervene.
Yeah.
Um, so we look at the airway and we try to address how can we best work with a patient, but it also involves is any of the tissue underneath the tongue too tight or under the lips too tight,
Yes.
which will challenge how the tongue functions, how one is able to keep their mouth closed, breathe through their nose, and get the full amount of oxygen that they need, especially at night when they sleep. So if you're laying back and your mouth falls open and you're snoring, it's disturbing your sleep. You never really get to that full REM sleep.
Right.
And so night after night, that affects you. And you're not always in the best of moods and not functioning as well.
Yes.
So,
So you're in that fight or flight state too, right? So
yeah, you kind of
you're
stay stuck in that sympathetic mode.
yes.
And there's no supplement or vitamin or food or whatever that can really change that volume. It really has to do with therapy, exercises that go hand in hand with a dental diagnosis of um, if they're tongue tied or lip tied. But not always. You don't always have to have either of those to benefit from my therapy. So
Yeah. So who knew, right? Like who
I
knew the
know,
tongue ends up being like one of the most important things in the body, and who knew that there was so much that we could actually do with our tongue. So,
right.
I mean, give me some more color around this. So what I know you said, your tongue placement is really important. How do we ensure that we're putting our tongue in the right spot?
Well, that's a good point, and I'll just take myself as an example that when I was a kid, I had very crooked teeth, and
Hmm.
I sucked my thumb, and I didn't realize until I got in this world of orofacial myology that those were actually symptoms of me figuring out how to breathe. So if you think about thumb suckers, they usually place their thumb right on that spot behind the upper front teeth, which is a place where epinephrine, norepinephrine, dopamine are all getting released. And so that's a feel good. So that's why they want to continually put their tongue in that position.
Right.
So, or their finger or their thumb or, their fist or whatever they decide to use for their compensation. Um, and then what that does is it starts to form the shape of the mouth because the tongue's in the wrong position. And because it's so strong, it'll use the lips and the muscles and the tongue to push teeth. And then we say, oh, this kid has crooked teeth and they need braces.
Right.
So, but not understanding what caused the teeth to be crooked in the beginning. So you
Mhm.
can go ahead and put the orthodontic braces on for a year, 2 years, whatever, and maybe even repeat it once or twice because the teeth have relapsed and gone back into a position where they were before
Sure.
because the habits of the mouth and the muscles have not changed. And I'm a case in point. You can see I used to have beautiful straight teeth, and it can see all the crowding. And a lot of that was my own compensation patterns of how I swallow. And I'll see if I can do it to show you what I was doing now that I've trained myself not to do it. It
Yeah.
was more like a lot of pushing of these muscles, which was squeezing the teeth together. So it's like an orange. If you squeeze it, and
Hmm.
you'll have an oval shape versus a round shape. So if you keep squeezing the muscles, you'll get this high vaulted palate, which isn't ideal for placement of the tongue. So it's always trying to jockey for position, and often when someone is tongue tied, their tongue will actually come forward on the swallow instead of back. And so that constant pushing is what misaligns the teeth. So you have to not only, and perhaps in some cases, correct the teeth with orthodontics, but also retraining the tongue function
Right.
along with it. Hmm.
Right. Right. I, Talk to me a little bit about how would you know that you have a tongue issue? So as adults, as children,
Hmm.
what are we looking out for?
Sure. Well, underneath the tongue is
So
this it's called a frenum, and
mhm,
it's an attachment. It's kind of like the webbing between your fingers. You have what you have.
yes,
So maybe you are a person that has only this much space between your two
so
fingers.
a little bit of space, so
Yeah, and
less
so
than time.
yeah, and so like that could affect how you use your hands. And same way underneath your tongue or up underneath your lip, there's an
Hmm.
attachment up into
Hmm.
here and on the sides.
Yeah, I had my front removed because when I was little, it was pulling down my gums.
Right.
I actually had to cut that one
Yeah.
when I was young.
Right.
Hmm.
So that'll affect the way that the teeth grow in, a way that your mouth is shaped. And so when we're looking at, why would we want to intervene with a laser procedure and therapy,
Right.
is if that restriction is too tight, that's not allowing you to have full suction, meaning you can put all of the suction your tongue to the roof of your mouth and have a pretty wide range of motion. Some people maybe only have this.
So, can you explain for our listeners what it is that they can do to test that out? What you're doing? Because
One thing would be to close your teeth and
Mhm.
then suction your tongue up to the roof of your mouth like you have peanut butter up there and it's stuck. And you keep it suctioned up there, and then you open,
Okay.
and you'll see that attachment. Now, sometimes when you lift it up and it's tight, it's like a guitar string. It's really, really taut and tight or short. And but that's not always the indication. So then we go into what are some other things. You have neck tension, shoulder tension, forward head posture. Can you
Hmm.
lean over and touch your toes easily? Are
Hmm.
you snoring, grinding?
Hmm.
You getting up to go to the bathroom a lot, and things like that. And so for in children, a really nice validated screening questionnaire for children and adults. So it's mostly designed for children that your listeners can have a complimentary questionnaire to take. And so, anyhow, it gives you an indication of out of these different what we call parasomnias, which are things that contribute to why a child would not breathe or sleep as efficiently. So, things like bedwetting, night terrors, sleepwalking, sleep talking, periodic limb movement, restless leg syndrome, uh, not feeling rested when they wake up in the morning, very agitated during the day. Some kids have ADD type symptoms. And as we know, sometimes it may be just a label on them, but nobody's noticed that they actually don't sleep well. And so it can contribute to a number of things. And that's why the questionnaire that I like to have parents take is one that asks the questions about those specific parasomnias. Some questionnaires do, but most don't ask uh, the significant number, and it's about 11 of them that we'd like to take a look at and evaluate. So that's where I would start. Let's see, where a child falls into what category. Are they kind of normal, they caution range, or they high risk range? And then that's a kind of a milestone that we can then use to give to the dentist or the pediatrician to say, we kind of are seeing a tendency here toward a breathing problem.
Hey, this is Dr. D. I just wanted to remind you that you can get started on your True Wellness journey. Go ahead and check the show notes and grab a link to the True Wellness checklist. Now, let's get back to the episode. You've mentioned tongue tie or lip tie a couple of times. What can you describe for our listeners exactly what that is?
Okay, so tongue tie would be that tight restriction of the frenum underneath the tongue or up underneath the lip. And what is typically done is a laser procedure that releases it. And it's usually pretty quick and painless. Some people do have a little bit of soreness for a couple of days afterwards. But all of this is in conjunction with preparing for that surgery with therapy, orofacial myology therapy, for roughly a month beforehand to get those muscles nice and straight or strong, and that way they can hold the tongue up during the procedure. But more importantly is afterwards, working for about another 3 months, trying to work on getting the muscles, all the muscles of the tongue to work so that we can accomplish the goal. And that would be that the tongue lives up in the roof of the mouth all the time versus, like I had mentioned before, down low, and that the swallowing pattern is correct. So we're always looking at the tongue position when it's at rest. Where is it? Mm-hmm.
So where is your tongue? Everybody, where is your tongue right now as you're just restfully sitting there? Pay attention to what's happening with your tongue. Tell me, Alyse, so I don't think we've just defined orofacial myology. So
Okay.
I think we've kind of skirted around it. Can you explain for us exactly what that study is?
Sure. So oro, is the around the mouth, and facial is the face. So the muscles around the face, myology is study of the muscles. So it's repetitive motions therapy that retrain the tongue what it should do. I'll give you an example. Some people think they can't curl their tongue like that. They go,
Like a little hot dog bun.
yeah, they're like they can't do it, but in theory, everybody actually can.
Uh-huh.
So what we do, even in the beginning, if because of that restriction not allowing them to fully curl, is we can even simply have them blow over their tongue, and you can see it'll start to bring that those sides up just a little bit.
Yes.
And if that's all we get in the beginning, and then we work more and more and more, then the release is done. And then we're able to eventually get them to a point where they can do that. I've had patients that can't blow up a balloon, that can't whistle, have a hard time swallowing pills. And then, eventually they can, as we train the muscles repetitively each week to get stronger. There's 8 muscles of the tongue, and when you're tongue tied, you only use pretty much the front muscles, and the muscles in the back closer to the throat are the ones that are the weakest, and that's why you end up having a smaller airway, because those guys are lazy. So we want to wake them up, train them what to do, get the airway wider. And later in therapy, what we do is humming. If you hum where you're humming in the back of your throat, not through your nose, but and I usually have them do happy birthday. And you'll feel that soft palate, the part of the skin where that little tag hangs down. It's called a uvula. You'll see that and feel that move up and down, or simply roaring, ah, ah. And you can see how that moves up and down. Ah, and it gives you a bigger airway right out of the gate. And so we try to make those exercises pretty fun, have lots of little cute tools and things to do. Even the big kids, the grown-ups, like to do it as well. And exercises are done about 3 times a day. They take about 2 minutes. A lot of them you can do in the car, you can do them in the shower, you can do them watching TV, cooking dinner.
Yes.
And some of them do have props, but it's not anything that's extensive or hard. In the beginning, it seems like it's hard, but I have kids that get on the next week and they can do it no problem. So,
I bet the
um,
kids they start to enjoy all these tongue practices. I mean, hey, we go to the gym to build our muscles. Why aren't
right.
we building our tongue muscles?
Right, exactly. And so in the therapy, I work with the tongue, I also work with the lips, and I also work with posture.
Mm,
Because I was mentioning before, you have a tendency to want to bring your head forward.
sure.
And so we want to prepare for if they have the actual laser release, that we're strengthening all up here in the upper chest so that when it's released, they're already able to hold themselves up nice and straight
Right.
versus, that rounded posture.
Right.
So, and they can touch their toes, with ease. And so, like I said, there's a lot of different things that we evaluate to before we,
Sure.
make that call to, uh, insult the body, if you will. And, but it's very rewarding, once we get on the other side of everything and people are sleeping, children are stopping wetting the bed, they sleep better, they're rested in the morning, they're just happier kids all the way around.
Yeah. I mean, would you say that this is, these issues are becoming more of an epidemic?
They are. This is, we call it the new children's epidemic throughout the United States. And there's so many, like I was saying, those parasomnias that go unrecognized. It could be daytime sleepiness, kids that are tired at school, or the teachers noticing it. Do they make a comment to the parents? Is the parents even aware of it?
Yeah.
Are the kids snoring, grinding? Are they all over the place when they are sleeping? Do they sweat during their sleep? And
Hmm.
as kids get a little bit older and mom and dad aren't necessarily checking on them in the night, they don't always know. So when they take this questionnaire, the nice thing about it, they can pause it, go and observe for a night or two, and then answer the questions.
Yes.
um, because they all have a telltale sign that something's going on, that a child is struggling, especially toddlers. Those symptoms are a way for them to express, how
Mm.
they're breathing. Some toddlers will roll over on their belly and put their butt up in the air and turn their head to the side, and that's actually a compensation pattern to be able to breathe, believe it or not. So some kids will suck their thumbs, some will chew their nails, some kids will pull their hair, chew
Hmm.
on objects, chew on their lip, chew on their cheek, on the inside, lip licking. There's just so many different little idiosyncrasies that they do to start compensating.
And the funny thing though, I think, Alyse, is that most of the time we're just told kids will grow out of these different
Hmm.
behaviors and these different patterns.
Yep, they really don't. And interestingly enough, that is a title of one of my lectures. They'll grow out of it, and recognizing early signs of childhood breathing distress. And so, as a dental professional sitting chair side, there are just so many things that you hear the dentist telling the parents, like, oh, they'll grow out of it. They'll grow out of the grinding, the snoring, all that. Um, and to a certain degree, there is some truth to that, but they end up just compensating and doing something else to replace what they were doing.
Right.
So, like I said, one of the things would be, putting a child through orthodontics and then taking that off, and then in early adulthood, then the teeth are shifting and relapsing, going back the way that they were, similar to the way they were, and so then they'll put the orthodontics on for a second round, or they'll do Invisalign, or some of these correctors that don't take very long. But it's a pattern that gets repeated over and over again. I mean, I've had patients that have gone through orthodontics 4 and 5 times,
Oh my goodness.
and it's like, okay, well, they didn't get to the root issue. So, and muscle, when you have a war between muscle and bone, muscle always wins. It's just so much stronger. So
Okay.
that's why we can use the tongue to achieve what we need, and the tongue will actually end up becoming a nice retainer for the mouth once we get it to sit all the way up in the roof of the mouth permanently. It
Hmm.
keeps a nice shape for the roof of the mouth, so that people don't have to be tethered to wearing their retainer all the time.
Right, right.
Hmm.
Does it help with things like, children who need or adults who need palate expanders? You know,
Hmm. It
that's come
does.
up a lot.
It does. And, it's nice in conjunction with palatal expanders. Some dentists will do the palate, expand the palate first, then recommend oral facial myology. It just really depends on the case, which comes first.
Mhm.
Sometimes I do the oral facial myology first, then we do the expansion, then some ortho, and then I will follow a child quarterly, semi-annually, just to check on their growth spurt and to make sure they haven't adopted any new bad habits. Yeah,
That happens.
compensation. Yeah, so it happens. And,
Absolutely.
yeah, oral facial myology is becoming more of a household name, and more dentists are recognizing that they need to partner with someone like myself.
Yes.
And the beauty of what I do is I work virtually because it's like, where do I set up shop? It's going to be too far for somebody.
Yeah.
And I've just discovered that virtually is a lot easier and friendlier, especially on a family when they have children and sports and homework and dinner and all of that stuff. So it saves them a trip across town, and that it ends up being really good. I mean, sometimes I'm seeing families in the car at soccer practice, in the parking lot. So, it's amazing all the places where they show up on video, but
That's
we get her done. We can get it done.
Yeah,
So,
it's a new world out there.
yeah.
How did you come across this pathway? Having started as a dental hygienist, how did
Mm.
you make your way to orofacial myology?
That's a good question. Well, I started out learning about naturopathy. I trained to become a naturopathic practitioner, and in there we had a lesson on tongue diagnosing, and I thought, okay, they never taught us that in school, and I just thought it was a lot of hogwash, basically. But they allowed me to use my clinical hours while I was working as a dental hygienist, just kind of observe in my mind and report what I saw. And so there's so much pathology that's on the tongue that tells us a lot about what's happening in the body. And so I became a lecturer on the topic. And and then I ran across some people that were in this field of oral facial myology, and they were talking about function of the tongue. And I thought,
Huh.
wait, there's more? And, so I started investigating that, and, I was looking for something different to do in dentistry, and so I went and studied it, and, it took me a little while to feel confident to hang my shingle out, and I finally did, and I started out in a brick and mortar practice, and then just by default with COVID and so forth, like everybody, we just learned how to go
Hmm.
online, and I never thought we could do that, but it allows me a lot of flexibility in my schedule and so much easier for the patients.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm. Yeah.
Absolutely. Tell me a little bit about, I know you're a huge fan of this YouTube video called Finding Connor Deegan.
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about that video. Why
Well,
is it important?
it's just a really heartwarming story of a young boy that was diagnosed with ADD, and only to discover, mom was very, very savvy and kind of pushed for answers. And it wasn't until the dentist recognized that he had a sleeping problem, breathing
Hmm.
problem.
Yeah.
And so once they intervened with that, she had a new kid. And he began to thrive and, prosper more in school, and just, his personality and things like that. So some of the Airway groups have adopted his video that's out there that was made by his mom. So uh, I encourage you to watch it if you get a chance. Have a little tissue by nearby, because
Quick
it's a
time.
sad but good story, And so there are a lot of Connor Deegan kids out there that just really don't know how to get better. And one of my now friends is a school psychologist, Dr. Marcia Luganbiel, who designed the sleep questionnaire that I really like.
Beautiful.
And she had a son like that, that they didn't know what to do with him. And it wasn't until he was, I think, almost 18 that the dentist discovered that he wasn't breathing right. And so
Wow.
they did some, back in the day, that's when they were still taking tonsils out. And, they were literally blocking his airway. And so once he could start to breathe better, he just became a more productive kid and could think better. And now is some big executive or whatever. So anyhow, she got to thinking like, wow, as a school psychologist, I wonder half these kids aren't, sleeping well, and that might just be the problem. And so she went back and designed this sleep questionnaire, and now it's out nationally, and we're hoping that, American Dental Association will take a serious look at it. And but dentists can use it, orofacial myologists can use it, pediatricians. It's not limited to any particular profession, but it
Right.
gives us a general screening. It's not a diagnosis, but it does give us a general screening as to what are we dealing with here and how could we move forward and recommend what to do.
Right. Right.
Mhm.
Because I mean, yeah, like we started out with saying in the very beginning, this is, I think, one of those hidden things that no one's talking about. And yet there's so many different impacts that if we can start out with something as simple as a questionnaire to be like, oh, okay, maybe there is a sleep issue here.
Right,
Like
right.
that is a place to begin. What about for adults, who are having, snoring and sleep apnea and all that stuff happening?
Mhm. Yep, a lot of that is still the tongue function, and a lot of times, unfortunately, adults are tongue-tied. They're just big kids that were misdiagnosed as a child. Would it be more ideal to have caught it when they were 5? Sure. But I always say, at least I can help you so you can finish well, whatever it is that you have left of life,
Right.
and get a better quality of sleep and function, and just knowing that at least you were caught at even whatever age you are, and we can do the most that we can with what we have.
Right.
So a lot of success stories, of adults. So it's not that it's hopeless or you're too old, or so I would say my practice is about half and half, adults and children. So and I love what I do. It's just so rewarding, and I ended up kind of by default getting on the American Dental Association task force that they put together, based off of a proposal that was put out in 2017, saying that we really need to start addressing it, and how do we go about training dental professionals how to screen for this airway problem, because it's still very unknown.
Yes.
And so I'm on the screening committee where we've designed some questions for the parents to answer chairside, when they're at the dental appointment with their child.
Hmm.
And so we can start picking out even the mild cases, because the obvious cases are easy, if they're snoring, grinding, but like when I was talking about some of those parasomnias, you really don't know until you ask or you observe if there's
Sure.
more going on. And so, when I start going down the list, the parents like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's like, okay, well, it's not always just if they're tongue tied or not. So,
Understood.
yeah,
It's like a whole new world as we start to, as we start to look for different things and understand different things. We're like, wow, there is a little piece that's over here that contributes to all these other pieces,
right.
when it comes to our overall health. What would you say are you know, some key things? So if people suspect that there is an airway problem, what should they begin doing?
Well, one of the things would be to start asking your dentist, and see if they know about it, and or do your own research out online about airway. And like I said, there's some things you could look at on yourself. Do you have a tight attachment? Is when you look down your throat, is it kind of small back there? Are you snoring? Are you grinding? These are all indications. Do you toss and turn a lot when you sleep? Are you getting up to go to the bathroom a lot?
Hmm.
So and how do you feel overall? So some of the things that they could do is start of being a detective and answering some of their own questions and observing what they're doing and finding a dentist in their area. An airway focused dentist would be
Yes.
one of the Google searches.
Yes.
Airway focused dentist, and they're going to understand about orofacial myology and the importance of doing both together, because we've learned from our research now that if you just do the tongue tie surgery without the therapy before and after, uh, the results aren't optimal. So it's really best to work with a dentist that won't even do the procedure unless you've had the therapy. You're working with the therapist.
Right, because that means they're understanding the breadth of what's happening. What
Right.
is the difference between oral facial myology and myofunctional therapy?
It's really the same. It's just a different terminology.
Okay,
It's like if you say I have um, orthodontic wires or you have braces. They're both the same terminology. It's just some people label it a different way, but it all comes down to where is the tongue in the resting position and how can we um, teach the tongue to be in the most ideal position at rest.
yes. I was really excited. My last dental appointment, the hygienist, she's like, "Hey, just make sure that you're putting your tongue up and just keep practicing that." And I was like, "Oh, wow."
Yep.
I
Yeah.
find when you go to a holistic dental practice, they are much more in tune and much more aware that this is an issue that needs to be paid attention to.
Right.
So,
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, some of the things you could do just in general is just make sure that you take and smash your tongue up in the roof of your mouth and just really push, push, push. And you constantly find out where is normal for me,
yeah,
and just you can just do some simple pressure exercises, pushing up. But there's a lot of them that are pretty easy to quickly train the muscles, and like I said, it's a lot of fun.
yeah.
Um,
And
but
I'm sitting here pushing my tongue against the top of my. I'm sure our listeners are doing the same thing as we speak, which is awesome, right? We're
it is nice.
exercising that tongue.
Yep. Yep, it is. And even like I've heard in yoga practices, there's a lot of exercises where you stick your tongue out.
Yeah.
There's one that it's like out and down,
Uh huh. Yes. Yes. Different breathing
and you
techniques.
get this nice stretch all up in here. But there's also a stretch into this muscle that runs from your hyoid bone, the one that sits here down along the neck and into the shoulder. So
Yes.
it's always good to stretch up in there. And
Yeah.
it's also good for, your jawline and, no sagginess underneath. And
all that
so,
all that double chin stuff.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So
I
it's good
want
for
to
that.
ask you because you're talking about the posture. How do you think the electronic usage, like the cell phone,
Oh,
and all of that, what kind of an impact is that having
man.
on our mouth, our jaw? I mean,
Mhm.
I think we think about the neck when we think about the position, but
Yeah.
is that impacting that environment as well?
Yeah, it does. We call it tech neck, where you're sitting down, and the head's dropped. And a lot of times when kids are doing it, they're like in this trance, and often you'll see their mouth open,
Uh huh.
working on whatever. And so they train that position. And if you look at when you do that, it makes the face narrower. So we want the mouth to be closed, breathing through the nose, so we have good facial growth. And you can see from my face, it's a little narrow, just because I was one of those kids that had orthodontics, it relapsed. I was snoring, and I had some other spinal problems that resulted out of incorrect alignment that we didn't know was a result of the way that my teeth were coming together.
Right.
And just another side note is, also the posture, this head neck movement. It's good to not only have chiropractic treatment during orthodontics, but cranial sacral therapy, where you're looking at the relationship of all the skeletal bones and how it pumps the cerebral spinal fluid through the body system. And because a lot of times when you have the orthodontics on, it's a lot of pressure pushing on the teeth, and
Yeah.
moving teeth through the bone. So you want to be aligning the rest of the body along with the new alignment of the adjustments that you get monthly or whatever your orthodontist has in store for you.
Right. Right.
Hmm.
Right. Awesome. Well, Alyse, tell us, I always ask all of our guests, what are like the top 3 things that are really important that people can begin taking action on right now to begin to improve their health and wellness based, from that perspective of your expertise?
Well, sure. One of them is getting good night's rest. And so, if that's something, one of the telltale signs about that, if you aren't, is you don't feel rested in the morning. So, that would indicate that you're probably not getting the REM sleep.
Yeah.
Now, can we work nutritionally with that? Absolutely. Do we have supplements that can help reset the circadian rhythm, melatonin, things like that, that can help to calm the system? But what's happening is when you're in that part of your sleep pattern where you're in distress and you're waking up a lot, you're in a sympathetic mode. And
Right.
so it's really shifting gears, learning how to do parasympathetic. And
Hmm.
as I mentioned earlier, it would really be doing a search on airway focused dentistry. I would say that's one. I would also look at how's your exercise program? Are you stretching? Is there yoga? And how is your overall alignment in your body? What's the level of your feet? Is that correct? Because that can drive a lot of posture.
Hmm.
Um, and then thirdly, I would just say working with somebody like you, where you can work by getting the tissue of the body as healthy as possible, because it's one thing to move, let's say, teeth into one direction, or move a body part, but then we're relying on tissue that might not be optimal to do
Right.
the work of supporting and nourishing the body. And so a lot of times people aren't just in the most optimal health that they could be in to
Hmm.
give the body what it really needs.
Right.
And so I think when you look at it all together, and it's just like brushing your teeth, flossing your teeth, getting your hair combed in the morning, taking a shower, all the things, the list that we have to do every day to, kind of
Exactly.
put ourselves through life.
Yes.
And what are you doing for sleep hygiene? Are you getting off of technology early enough in the evening?
Hmm.
You're protecting your eyes, when you're on the screen with blue blocking glasses,
Yes.
things like that. Do you have screen protectors? Do you have protection on your phone, your devices, things like that?
Right.
Hmm.
All really, really great stuff. Thank
Hmm.
you so much for being here with us, for sharing your expertise. How can our listeners learn more about your work, or how they can work with someone who helps develop the
Sure.
tongue, the mouth? Yeah.
Right. Well, there are a lot of different directories online for orofacial myologists. If you type in orofacial myology
Mhm.
therapist, there are professional groups that have directories. My website is my name, AlyseShockey.com. And when you go on there, that's how you can get a hold of that free questionnaire. You'll get a copy, I get a copy, and if you want, we can have a short chat about whether your child's in distress or not. And I like to use that word distress. That tends to get the parents' attention. So when I see a screener that comes back where a child's in high risk, we don't want to wait. We want to encourage them to seek out help.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and fortunately, there are more and more dentists that are getting on board with this whole airway movement.
Great.
And so they're eager to learn,
Mhm.
and they're not necessarily everywhere. But again, that's why I do my work remotely, because if I have a dentist that is on board and they're in Texas or whatever, um, I'm not close by, but I can be when I see their patients virtually, and works
Yes.
out really well.
Yes.
So,
I love that. Well, thank you so much. And for all of our listeners, the links and the information will be in the show notes. So be sure to check out the show notes. If you're just listening, check it on whatever podcast platform you're listening
mhm.
to. If you are watching us on YouTube, then it'll be in the YouTube notes as well. So thank you, Alyse, for being here with us today. And everyone, happy breathing, and stick that tongue up to the roof of of your mouth and put some focus on it.
Thanks, Dr. D. You're awesome. Appreciate you
so
spreading the word.
Yes, thank you for all your great work in bringing this out and making it people aware of it out in the world.
My pleasure.
Thank you. This is Dr. D reminding you to tune into your body, connect with what matters, and embrace the journey to true wellness. If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who's ready to redefine their health. Be sure to grab a copy of the True Wellness Checklist right in the show notes. Let's keep redefining wellness and empowering change together. See you for the next episode.